Just going to give some time for anybody to show up and also see if my guest intends to join. Aha.
Hey, what's up?
Uh-oh. I don't know why. Weird. Let me try to remove. Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Getting echo of everything that I say.
Oh, that could be me. Hold on.
No worries.
Is that better?
I think so. Yeah. Yep. Now it's gone.
That was me. My bad.
No worries.
I think StreamYard remembers my mic being a different input.
Always gotta love that.
Yes. Swap it off Box. Put it to regular bio. Okay. Do you still hear yourself?
I do not.
Okay. Good.
Excellent.
And then let me. There we go.
Sweet.
Sorry, I'm not wearing a shirt right now. So all my clothes are in the wash.
No worries at all. I'll just get through some housekeeping stuff and then ask what you've been up to, and we'll launch into it.
Sounds good to me.
We are live currently, but nobody fucking watches live, and almost nobody listens once it goes to the podcast feed. So I'm not too worried about it.
I know that feel.
All right. Welcome back to Revolution Solution. This is Jared the Permy Guy. Today, I have Dino, formerly of Dino Files, of The End Times Continue. We're talking about 3D printing and guns and 3D printing guns. And I'm looking forward to it because I don't have anybody to talk to about this stuff normally. So
it's going to be great.
I believe it. A few housekeeping items. As always, I am streaming from the Food Forest Farms premium StreamYard account, which Brian Norton so graciously allows me to use. for exchange of me mentioning that it is his StreamYard account and giving a little signal boost to his stuff. So check out Food Forest Farms for all of your coffee and CBD and consulting and camping needs. And then all my links, as always, can be found at lsd.ittybitty.tips. That's everything for Limited Supply Designs and for Revolution Solution. That's all I got on housekeeping stuff. Dean, what have you been up to?
Oh man, I'm doing I'm deep in bar prep right now, and I'm not studying as much as I should, but it's just there's a lot. It's a lot to try and prep for that test. It's a very difficult test, and so I've also been just kind of hanging out, waiting on that to happen. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, you have those in between periods in life, right? Where it's like you have to wait on a thing to happen so that the next chunk of your life can start.
Yep.
It's that.
Gross.
it's just that. So it's kind of a holding pattern at the moment.
Okay, that's fair. I took it's definitely, I'm sure it's not to the same scale, but I took the PE exam. I guess it would have been almost 3 years ago now. Mm-hmm. For my professional engineering license. I was originally scheduled to take it in May of 2020, and maybe it would have been April. Anyway, like 4 weeks out from the exam, they canceled everything. Obviously, because it was 2020.
Yeah.
So I got to study for it twice, but I did pass the first time.
Good.
Which is like a 50% chance that happens with most people. So I did not have to study for it again. I've got a good friend that just took it for the fourth time. And I don't know that I would still be above ground if I was in that situation.
Oh yeah, no. There's kind of a similar thing with the bar where it's not uncommon if people have to take it, 2 or even 3 times. But the problem is by the time you get that far into it, you're so deep as far as the money goes, you kind of don't have another chance.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's not doable. It's just one of those things where sometimes people take more chances at it, and sometimes you get a bad test. Like there's I don't know what I'm allowed to say. There was a test. The last BART exam had stuff on it that people did not study because they were told by their bar study programs not to study it because it never gets tested.
Oh no!
And it was all over the last one. So sometimes people just get a bad test. Yeah. So but it's one of those things where, if you can hack it, it's worth it. You have to basically, but by the time you're ready to take the bar, you're so deep as far as the money goes that you kind of have to pass it.
Right. Just to get back into the black.
Right. Exactly.
Jeez.
Or to have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. Not even a guarantee. Man. Yeah. It's just one of those weird, like you said, an in-between time. Cause it's like, everybody around you is just looking forward to passing, and it's like this is a big achievement, and then everybody that will be around you once you pass will just be like, yeah, everybody had to do that.
Oh, it ceases to matter. It's one of those things that it's so crazy to me. It's like okay, do you remember when Ketanji Brown Jackson, I think that's her name, I can't remember, was in front of the Senate for her confirmation to the Supreme Court, and Ted Cruz asked her what her LSAT score was. That was one of those moments where I'm like, when I heard that I didn't watch it live. When I heard that had happened, I'm like, Ted Cruz is an idiot. Nobody remembers their LSAT score. If it was good enough to get in, you got in and forgot it. Like, right. and it's kind of similar where kind of the bar and stuff like that's concerned. It's like once you actually all that matters is passing it. And once you actually pass it in the world you're in now, everyone passed it. Doesn't matter. That's not special.
Yeah. Yep. That's the way the PE is as well. If you pass, they don't give you like any information that you passed.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like maybe you got a 40% and everybody else really had a hard time this go round, or maybe you got 100. Who knows? Nobody.
Yeah.
It's so
weird. But it's one of those things where it's like once you do pass it, now you're in a world of, it kind of reminds me, I was thinking about when I was younger, I was thinking about going to art school. And what eventually kind of disabused me of that notion being a good idea was I sort of objectively looked at what my skill level was, and it's like when you go into that environment and everybody's good.
Yeah.
So I might be one of the better artists at my high school, but once you go into a place where everyone's an art student, it's like you're not as good as you were when the pool was different. And
Right.
so it's kind of like that when you like pass the bar and stuff. And now you're hanging out with attorneys, and it's like, yeah, they all did too. Nobody cares. Nobody thinks it's important at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody cares. Nobody could do it again today. It's
Yeah,
just one of
right.
those-
Exactly. That's the thing.
You just got to bend over and take it for a day, hopefully just once, and then you're through to the other side. It's
Yeah.
so weird.
It's expensive to take it in February, though. It's expensive to take it ever. But to take it in February, they only have one place where they are doing it in Texas. So I have to get a hotel in Austin,
Oh, jeez.
in downtown Austin.
Lovely.
So I'm not too far from the actual the center where it's being given. So that costs money. Yeah, dude. It's like
Yeah.
every time I turn around, I'm paying a new bill to take this goddamn thing.
Fuck. Yeah.
But
Man, yeah, I hope you pass it this time around and don't have to fuck with it again.
it would be that's ideal. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Good luck, man. Yeah, that is a lot to be up to. Wanted to make sure to throw a disclaimer here on the front end. Neither of us sell guns or gun parts or plastic of any shape. This podcast is information and cannot be mistaken as legal advice, or anything close to such.
No.
seen
No legal
all-
advice. No offers for services or goods. Nothing.
Yeah. From what I've seen, it is not at all unclear that you cannot put for sale any parts for anything that could be construed to be a gun. That doesn't mean that you can't get away with selling them person to person. That's at your own risk. But for God's sake, do not say it publicly.
No, never sell a gun part that you made unless you are in the business of selling guns and you have all that licensure and everything out of the way, because that's where people get in trouble.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing about it, right? Like there's the legal distinctions, especially where 3D printing is concerned, the legal distinctions get very strange because you have ultimately personal sale of firearms is okay. Like it's fine. Like I could sell one of my guns to somebody tomorrow. But the problem
anybody
is
that you don't have reason to believe is a felon, basically.
right. Yeah. But the problem is if I made that gun and then sold it, now I'm a manufacturer and now I have to do all this other stuff, right? So I don't see the distinction as being particularly clear between, like, if I were just to print out a Glock and then not want it anymore and sell it to somebody, it's not clear to me that would not be very, very illegal. And in fact, I think it would be very, very illegal, even if it's the one time I ever did it, right? Like, I'm not a gun manufacturer. I have a gun. I don't want it anymore. I was going to sell it like I would any other gun I don't want anymore. But you cannot do that. That's people, you will, that's, if you're sacrificing your dog if you do that.
Yeah. Good grief. That's so crazy. Oh man. Yeah, just the level of things that you can make yourself and sell.
Yeah.
It is acceptable, but anything that could become a firearm.
Well, especially with the new 80% rules.
That's past it.
Right. Yeah. Well, especially with the new 80% rules and stuff. Like, if you were to print out, let's say, like an unfinished Glock frame that someone else could finish and try and sell that, with the new 80% rules, I think that's illegal too.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the new rule?
Well, it's not new now. It was new, I think probably a year and a half ago. It's when they went after Polymer 80.
Okay. Yeah, I figured
you remember when they
would've been
raided
more, yeah.
Polymer 80?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they raided Polymer 80 a while back, and part of some of the new rules had to do with 80% in unfinished firearms and stuff. So 80%, as far as I know, which is not, this is not a rule that I looked at deeply because I have no connection to 80% firearms whatsoever. I don't buy them. I've never bought an 80% lower. I have no idea. So I didn't look closely at it, but as I understand it, what qualifies as like a legal unfinished firearm that's not legally a firearm is not what it was prior to like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And I think it's either that or it still is, but you can't sell it with certain things. Like for example, Polymer 80 got in trouble because they were selling like a Glock in a box, basically. They were selling
jigs and everything with it.
Everything, the jigs, the slide, finish slide, barrel, all of it just in a box. And all you had to do was drill the frame and build it.
I mean, anybody that knows the tendencies of the ATF knew that was spurious, had spurious chances of lasting to begin with, but it's incredible they got away with it for so long.
Oh yeah, well, did you see what Palmetto State Armory was selling the other day?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I saw that one on Twitter earlier today.
Is the funniest? Is 11.5 inch AR-15. It was the 11.5 inch barrel on an AR-15 upper, which you could buy in like a bundle with an AR-15 lower with a pistol brace on it. Yep. And they were selling those two things together for $400.
yeah, like with a disclaimer that it could go at the United States and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Well, it was saying these items are subject to NFA regulation or whatever, but you're buying them separately. So like there's nothing stopping you outside of the fact that you're committing a felony or will be committing a felony in 100 and I think 19 days now. 100
if you ever combine those two things.
If you ever put them together, right, exactly. Yeah.
Which they have no reason to believe you'll ever do.
No, of course not. I just found a couple of parts to buy. Who said I'm printing out a lower and it's, everything else. But no, they that was hilarious when they put that up. It's a massive fuck you to the ATF, and I was very, very happy to see it.
Yeah, it should be. I saw somebody in the replies on that was like, PSA quickly went from just some second tier South Carolina gun store to something to like a shining star.
Oh yeah. Well, PSA, like a lot of people, I've liked PSA for a long time, and I know every time they launch a gun, their first gens have problems. Like I know that, and that's going to be with just about anybody. But I've loved PSA because of what they kind of stand for. Their whole thing has kind of been, we're going to make everything in common use because we're going to sell shit so cheap, and it's going to be like it's kind of their goal, as I understand it, is that they're going to sell AR-15s, they're going to sell AKs, they're going to sell shit, and they're going to sell it cheap. And they're going to make sure that stuff qualifies as in common use.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, it's so I've it
within that, like, I guess not, is that part of the legal framework?
It is. So a firearm in common use is an argument against the proposition that a firearm is what's called unusually dangerous. Now, I'm sorry, unusual or dangerous or unusually dangerous. I've seen it both ways in different circuit court opinions. But where that comes from is DC v. Heller. In that opinion, Scalia basically set out that the government can pretty much, to whatever degree they would like, regulate firearms and the ownership of firearms that are unusually dangerous, right?
Okay.
So if a firearm is in common use, which is another thing that comes from DC v. Heller, it's more likely that it is protected by 2A.
Weird. Okay.
And how much that stuff matters now is in question because of Bruen. Because Bruen changed the legal test for regulating firearms. So we'll see how things shake out as far as that's concerned. But that's a relatively new thing, and I could see the court basically saying, yeah, the Bruin test and plus also common use or whatever. Like I could see them doing whatever. It's up in the air right now what the legal sort of framework is going to be for firearms laws moving forward.
Interesting. And Bruin was the one that they've been pushing it back against some California laws, right? Like just it was basically something of the sort would have been available at the time of the drafting of
it was what it is that the regulation at hand needs to have a place in the history and tradition of the United States, and Bruin in particular kind of points to, because one thing that a lot of people will point to is the period after the Civil War, or just before it, because that's when the 14th Amendment was ratified. But the Bruin Court, and the reason that matters, I should explain. The reason that matters is because the Second Amendment applies to the federal government.
Right.
The Second Amendment, through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, applies to the states. So the Bill of Rights, I think there are 3 rights in the Bill of Rights that do not apply to the states. There hasn't been a case yet. One of those being the Third Amendment, I think. But the Bill of Rights don't apply to the states directly. They apply to the states through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. And so people will point to, well, there was these regulations existed in 1866. But the problem with that is the Bruin Court kind of said, not explicitly, but pretty much said at the time of the drafting of the Second Amendment, not the 14th.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's like, but like I said, it's not really explicit yet. We need more cases, and we're going to get them because some of these states are going crazy.
Yeah, it's been. I saw something on Twitter. California was basically trying to use the history and context point to like they were I'm stumbling over my words. They were pointing to some sort of law.
I think they were pointing
after the Civil War that was like specifically meant to disarm freed slaves. And
one of the Reconstruction, kind of in the Reconstruction period, one of those early gun control laws that was designed exactly like you said to disarm the freedmen. Yeah,
pointing like, hey, this was used to disarm them back then. Like, I mean, obviously we don't want the racism. We want to disarm everybody equally, but like,
yeah, right.
Sometimes we're past parody in the world, man, and I'm just happy to be alive. God. Another disclaimer. Now that I'm seeing it, always ask the government in your jurisdiction in what manners and with what methods you are legally allowed to defend yourself, of course.
Oh yeah. If we end up talking about that at all, the self-defense thing, yeah. And there are a lot of general principles as to self-defense that will apply in a lot of places, but the problem is you have one of the biggest distinctions, as an example, and to your point, you might have a distinction between, and I'm sure you know about this, but some people may not. In some states, you have what's called a duty to retreat. Mm-hmm. So if you're in a place where you can retreat, like usually this will apply if you're just in public, right? If you're just walking down the street and somebody is committing or is preparing to commit violence against you that would justify the use of lethal force, but you have the opportunity to retreat, you must retreat.
Yeah. Turn your back on a loaded gun.
Yeah, basically. I don't know. That might, if you can make that argument, you might be able to say I didn't have the opportunity to retreat because I would have died if I turned around.
Right.
If I walked away, they would have killed me. Yeah, you might be able to make that argument, but again, that's going to depend on your jurisdiction as well. So yes, to your point,
the judge that you get too.
Yeah, to some extent, yeah. So to your point, yeah, check your local laws for what you're allowed to do as far as the use of force, and don't listen to Andrew Branca.
Correct. Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah, I loved him for a long time. I don't know if you listened to the most recent TETC.
Yeah. That's the reason I even know his name.
Yeah, I liked him for a long time, but he has proven over the last few days to me that I cannot trust his expertise as a use of force expert because he allows the individual that is using the force to color his perspective on whether the force is justified.
Oh,
So
gross.
if the person using the force is a cop, he will, rather than objectively observing the use of force that's occurring and trying to objectively determine whether it's justified, he'll just say it's justified based on whether or not he likes the person that's using force.
Yeah, he'll
So
just get on his knees.
yeah. I don't. I wouldn't listen to him. Exactly. I wouldn't listen to him as far as his opinions on use of force, which is sad because I absolutely would have suggested him, not just a couple of months ago, but no, he is.
Has
He,
has
as far as I'm
changed his tune
concerned.
then recently?
No. It was actually recently that I sort of recognized just how politically brain rotted he is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because he was right on his perspective on the facts and the law of the Kyle Rittenhouse case was great, and the same is true of the Kim Potter case. I said on TETC, but I'll say it here too. I'm on record as having said I don't think Kim Potter deserved to be convicted. Kim Potter was the first the taser cop who shot the guy. When she was convicted, I said I don't think she actually broke the law here. I don't think she had the requisite intent for the conviction that she ended up getting. And so so his take on that sort of lined up with that too. So I thought his takes on that were good as well. But now he's proven over the last couple of days to be totally useless as an authority, as far as I'm concerned.
Lovely. Gross.
So yeah, but yeah, check your local laws. Check your local laws.
Yeah. Somewhat related note, I heard recently, this may have been from BR on his podcast, that Indiana, which I am looking to move to in the very near future, just extended their castle doctrine to include law enforcement that's unlawfully on your property.
Well,
explicitly made it so.
Yeah, there was a. Well, here's the thing: they passed that law about 10 years ago, but it only hit the news a little bit ago.
Oh no shit!
And I don't know why. I'm wondering if maybe there was something that delayed it going in force or something like that. But it just hit the news a little bit ago. But the legislature at least had passed that law about a decade ago. And there are many places, by the way. And actually Tennessee is one of them. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, I have to say that because if I'm wrong, somebody's going to try and sue me.
Be very
as far as I know,
before you shoot cops.
Yes, be absolutely sure what your laws are. But there is a statute in Tennessee that says that you can resist with necessary force. You can resist excessive force from the police. I know there was the case of, I've spoken about it before, the case of Andrew Coffey IV. Andrew Coffey IV was a guy who was sleeping on the couch when someone broke into the police, broke down his door, and they were shoving a gun in his face, and he pulled his firearm and he shot at them. I can't remember if he hit or killed anyone, but he was charged for that, and he was acquitted of that because they found that he had no reason to believe that he wasn't in danger, that basically that he feared he was going to be facing death or imminent grievous bodily harm, and so he was justified in defending himself, regardless of the fact that the people who broke down his door were pigs. So those kinds of cases are happening. Those kinds of laws are getting a higher profile and being passed in more places. And I think there seems to be, and Ace and I were talking about this a little bit, there seems to be a growing sort of acceptance for defending yourself from police.
That's good. It's crazy that we've gotten to a point where this seems like such a win when it just feels so obvious.
Right.
But, man, it just shows how far we've fallen.
It really does. It really, really does. That was one of the, I think there's some water running in the building, and I'm sure it's breaking my gate.
Yeah, I can hear it just a little bit. Hopefully it's not your neighbor trying to fall on you again.
Oh, no. Here, let me just raise my gate a little bit, and I'll be able to... Okay. Yeah. So the
all good.
Yeah. What was I saying? Now I've forgotten.
Just the laws being more high profile and passing more,
allowing resisting
unlawful force.
Yeah, there just seems to be more acceptance for that idea nowadays, which is a good thing, I think. But you're right; it does seem like it should just be obvious, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But in any case, but again, yeah, check your local laws. And also, the part of the thing about a legal defense like that is you have to survive the encounter to use it. So
That is for sure.
you know, there's a difference between the practical reality of defending yourself from the police and the ethical reality of it, right? And the legal reality of it. Those are three different things. And in most practical terms, if you choose to do that, you're probably going to be killed. You're probably going to be murdered. So you got to think long and hard about sort of where you stand on what you're going to do.
For sure.
And
almost always going to be outnumbered and likely outgunned, plus the justification of the entire state apparatus at their best, and not yours.
And like Ace said, nobody knows what they're going to do in that kind of situation, but it would serve everybody to kind of think about it now before you're in it.
Yeah.
And just kind of think about what would be the course of action that you would take. Mine personally is I would rather not get in a shootout with police, but if I don't know they're police, what am I going to do?
Right.
Like that was the Andrew Coffey situation. That was the thing with, I mean, there have been multiple home invasions look, I live in Houston. There have been multiple home invasions in Houston with people who pretended to be cops.
Yeah.
In order to break into homes and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I got off on that, but yeah.
No worries. I guess to pivot into printing, what got you into it? And like, I guess about how long ago did you start messing with a printer?
I started 3D printing, would have been 3 years ago at this point, maybe a little longer. I can't remember. It was close to when I started law school. So maybe just a little over 3 years. But I got into it for printing guns.
Yeah.
I got into it because I had seen what Ivan was doing, and this was not long after the Mark I of the FGC 9 came out.
Nice.
And that was like, it was when the FGC 9 came out that I was like, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what convinced me to get one. And I'm not sure of the timeline, but it would have been about just maybe over 3 years that I bought a 3D printer and started printing. I have yet to complete a 9, but do what?
Oh, continue. I'm sorry.
No, that was it. That's all I had.
It was about the same time frame and motivation and inspiration for me as well. So they definitely were on their shit with getting the message spread far and wide.
Oh yeah.
Once they had that finalized.
Well, especially once the FGC 9 came out, it's like that to me, that was kind of all the proof I needed was when I saw the FGC 9 functional and built of 0 firearms parts, right? Mm-hmm. Like there are modifications of that design that they'll like take a Glock barrel so you don't have to ECM your own barrel and stuff. But the fact that you can
the AR like spring kit and stuff.
The trigger, the fire control group.
There you go. There's the words I couldn't come up with. Yep. And that's like less than $5. Oh
yeah, it's cheap, super cheap. But it was that's what convinced me to do it was when I saw that functional. I was like, oh, okay, I gotta do this. Like I gotta get into this.
Yeah.
This is no something
anymore.
Right. And not only is there no barrier, but it's like, who the fuck am I if I'm not doing this? Like if I'm not part of this, I'm stupid.
Yeah. I'm just because it's LARPing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. I had the same feeling. I still feel like I am. Because I haven't completed shit. I've got all the plastic for the FGC. They make it feel so obvious that you'll find all these standard screws everywhere. I've looked at all the parts stores in the area and I can't find one of them.
No, it's my hardware and stuff like that. I just buy that shit on Amazon, dude. You can find anything cheap out of China on Amazon. But yeah, that's but the I haven't completed an FGC 9, mostly because I don't want to. Well, that's not true. It's not that I don't want to. It's that I don't want to do the work exactly, and I don't really have a workspace conducive to it. But I can build Glocks. I've got my computer desk and stuff. You can build a Glock on a desk. So I've completed a couple of Glocks. And sharing parts between them sometimes because I don't have any money.
Yeah, I feel that.
So it's hard to go on and drop $300 on a slide and a barrel to complete a gun when it's like I really could use that $300 for electricity,
food.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get that.
I've printed way more frames than I've built guns.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way.
Yeah, but
find the cool files and see if I can get them to look half decent and hold up without layer shifting and other bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a whole bin full of plastic.
Actually, this is one of the things that I wanted to kind of bring up, that like you don't have to be able to afford parts kits. You don't have to be able to even build a gun, really, to help with this. One of the things that I do is every now and then when I go onto the catalog and I pull down all the new stuff and I kick it over to, I have a couple of thumb drives. I have a few thumb drives.
Yep.
A couple of which are encrypted.
Yep.
That I pull all the files to, and I have an archive of the catalog. I have a couple of archives of the catalog that you can, like that, just being your own sort of node for this information and this data helps with the 3D printed firearm like community. It doesn't have to be, it's better that you build your guns. It absolutely is. You need to know how to do it. It's important. You learn a lot. Sure. But if you can't afford it, or you maybe your fucking landlord doesn't want you building guns in the house, like whatever it is, whatever it is that's keeping you from doing it, that's okay. Work toward getting past that, but also you can be doing things now to help in the 3D printed firearm community. One of those things is running an archive, being your own archive for the information, getting it out there to people. Be careful distributing the information. Again, check your local laws. But having it, there's not going to be anything wrong with having it, and at least in the United States. And so do that, like be and even if you can't build, by the way, and to kind of what we were talking about, even if you can't build it right away, print some frames, and then cut them in half and throw them away. Make them non-functional and throw them away if you don't want to build in it. Because technically that's a firearm, like it's an actual firearm. So if you don't want to have a firearm, you have to destroy the frame once you've printed it. But
go in fire.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Just whatever makes it non-functional, but and irreparable. But just like that, you print them out, and so that way you know what your settings are. You have your Kerr profile set up, and you're ready to go when you are ready to start building. You don't have to be able to buy all the parts kits tomorrow to sort of work toward this skill set. And in fact, you're probably going to want to print a couple of frames for practice anyway that are going to be trash. But you're going to need to learn what settings you need and what kind of supports do you like and all that. Like, can your printer, the way your printer functions, can it handle the micro texture on whatever file you're trying to use or whatever? Like you're going to want to print tests anyway. So,
absolutely.
Even if you can't build in it, get printing, because that gets you that much closer to being able to build in it.
Absolutely. I think it was your mention of having an archive of all the files that convinced me to not just have the ones that I was interested in doing something with. It was shortly after I heard you mention it on a podcast. I don't remember when or which one, that caused me to go in and download every single thing one by one. And I've got multiple backups myself as well.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Download the entire catalog. I mean, honestly, I'm a big fan of distributed networks. I know you like them
Hell
too. But the most distributed network is a guy with a USB stick. That's as distributed as knowledge gets. So be the guy with the USB stick.
yep. The more
Be
of
that
those,
guy.
the more impossible it is to make it go away.
You cannot. That's part of making the signal unstoppable. Is making sure that those files are fucking everywhere, and they cannot get rid of them.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
I
know? I know a few years ago there was a lot of push from some fucking loser in New Jersey trying to make the files unavailable there. Do you know if that?
I think that was. Was that Shapiro?
Yeah, I've got a Mac frame with this cute little face on it.
Yeah, the Joshy Washy. Yeah. Josh Shapiro, that fucking scumbag. Yeah. Yeah. He failed miserably in his attempts. I'm not sure about the legality of. I know in New Jersey there are rules with printing. I think you might have to serialize your frames if you print in New Jersey.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. Again, check your local laws. I live in Texas, so I don't have to mess with it. But I believe there are a couple of states. I think maybe California, New Jersey, but don't quote me on that. Where you have to serialize your frames if you're printing. It has to be some kind of identifying alphanumerical, whatever. So yeah, you want to be careful about that. And I know that was some fallout from Josh Shapiro and what he did. But he got a face on a 9 now, so you can pull down the Joshy Washy 9 and print out a firearm with Joshy Washy's stupid face on it.
I didn't realize that was the version that I had gotten until it started printing. I'm like, there's little hearts all over it. What the fuck is happening? It just keeps
the best version
going. it honestly, like, somehow ended up being one of my most beautiful prints. So I'm quite happy with how it turned out.
It's one of the better guns. Like some of my favorite stuff is like the stuff that directly calls out those politicians, like the Menendez mags, and the Joshy Washy 9. That's some of my favorite stuff that the 3D printing gun community does. In fact, who was it? I can't remember who it was that got sued for their Everytown AR-15 lower. It was like it was a U-bar lower with Everytown's logo on it.
Oh man, I don't know who it was.
And they caught a lawsuit for it. I can't remember if it was. I can't remember who did it. Fuck. I feel like such an asshole. Because I follow them on Twitter and have for a very long time, but now I can't remember.
Was it Hoffman?
Shit, it might have been Dynaxis. No, it wasn't Dynaxis. Fuck, I can't remember anymore. But yeah, they caught a lawsuit over it, and I don't remember. I do not know what happened with that lawsuit, but it was filed.
Yeah, I know I've seen maybe they changed it to Mom's Demand Anal, but it like a Mom's Demand Action type file of some sort as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Biden's Bane for the new AR.
The Biden's Bane, yes, that's another one. That
cute with the ice cream cone.
Oh yeah, dude, the Biden's Bane upper. Have you seen what? I can't remember his. Now I can't remember his name. I suck at remembering. I suck at remembering names in real life, and I suck at remembering people's names on fucking Twitter. Shit, I feel like a dick. But I have it here somewhere. I can. God damn it. He's working on the lever action AR-15.
Oh man.
Yeah, but that lever action AR-15 uses a Biden's Bane upper. Okay. So it's a Biden's Bane upper. To build it, like you have to cut the bolt and use the bolt carrier, sort of like where the charging handle would connect to the bolt and stuff. You have to connect it to the legs on the lever, and then you actuate the lever and it actuates the bolt. But it's a simpler mechanism than like a regular AR-15. I can't remember who's building it. I feel like a dummy. But yeah, it's very, very, very cool. It's very cool. And one of the thing that I like about it is that it's very simple too. It's all sort of a manual kind of kind of gun, and it's an AR. It fires it uses the Biden's Bane upper.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Fully printed.
That's dope.
Printed upper and printed lower on it, and I think he actually prints the dust cover too.
Yeah,
or not the dust cover. I'm sorry, the handguard.
The handguard, yeah. There's a good variety of lowers available now. Since the files have become available, everybody's kind of put their own flair on it.
Oh yeah, the U-bar. There's a lot of variants of the U-bar, and then there's also Hoffman's AR lower. And then Hoffman just came out with the Orca, which is I believe the beta just ended on the Orca.
Yeah, I keep seeing it on Instagram.
The Orca is an AR-15 that Hoffman put together that is printed stock, printed upper, printed lower, and printed handguard. And he designed it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's got a pick rail up top, but it's like all the lines flow together in this like gorgeous way. It looks so comfortable to shoot.
Yeah, they've done really good with all of the marketing photos for it too. It just it looks unbelievable.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It is a gorgeous firearm.
And that stock on the AR is one of the few things I haven't seen before, at least related to an AR. They've got it for the Plastikov, the printed stock, but I think that was a new addition as far as I'm aware for AR.
Well, most people don't need to because you can buy stocks for a dime a dozen. Right. You know, like Magpul stocks are cheap if you just need a stock.
Fair.
So they didn't need to, but Hoffman needed to because it needed to look good with the rest of his files, and it's beautiful. And I believe
all the reason you need.
I can't remember how it's designed. I haven't pulled down the files for the Orca yet, but I need to slice one because I'm actually not sure if the buffer tube is integral to that printed stock, or if it's a different sort of buffer tube situation going on back there that the stock fits on.
Okay.
I'm really curious about the construction of that. I need to pull down those files and slice them and look at what's going on inside there because it is such a cool design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely see more what's going on with it. For sure.
But that's it. But that's an AR-15. They can't. I mean that the Orca especially. I mean, look, the U-bar and the Biden's Bane upper, like that's the end of trying to control the AR-15.
Yeah.
As a platform, you can't kill it now.
Yep.
The Orca is like, and also it's super pretty. So like, not only can you not kill the AR-15, but this variant looks better than anyone else's AR.
Yep. And I love that about like the folks in this community. Like there's a good number of people that will just work on different textures, doing cute, silly things with stuff that other people have made, or like Are We Cool Yet? Aussie comes to mind. Just making all sorts of fun shaped shit. The foregrip has got almost like a tail to it. Looks kind of like it came out of a Nightmare Before Christmas or something.
Well,
I love that people are still having fun.
One of my favorite dudes is Chairman Juan.
Oh,
when the FMDA when Freeman Don't Ask released the Glock and stuff, Chairman Juan pulled him down and made him feel really, really good. Those stippling patterns and the ergos that he does are so fucking good. Those are the best feeling Glocks you can get. Is a Chairman Juan Freeman Don't Ask Glock lower. Like that is the most comfortable Glock you can hold. Factory Glocks don't feel so good. Yeah, and you can just print it. Yeah. A few dollars worth of filament.
Yeah, couple dollars and maybe 24 hours, and it's yours.
Exactly. Just don't buy slides from Rock Slides. If you put a Rock Slide on it, it's not going to function. I had that problem. I don't trust Rock Slides.
Right, fuck them.
Yeah, I bought actually when I printed a Glock 19. I haven't completed it yet. I need a couple more parts for it. But I have a Glock 19 that I printed. It's one of the Chairman Juan. It's the big coral pattern that he has on the Freeman Don't Ask Glock 19 version 2. And it is so nice to hold. And I bought a PSA dagger slide and it's sight ready. It's got doctor cuts on the top. So it is, when I get that gun built, it's going to be one of my favorite guns. It's not finished yet. I still need a trigger for it, and I think a couple of odds and ends. But it is very, very cool.
Hell yeah.
And the PSA Dagger slides will fit those just fine. The PSA Dagger is basically a Gen 3 Glock 19. And so is the Freeman Don't Ask Glock 19. It's also basically a Gen 3 Glock 19.
Okay.
So you can get the PSA Dagger slide for relatively cheap and just throw it on there. You're good to go.
Sweet.
As long as your print's right.
Yeah. I guess that kind of leads to another question that I had here. Have you done any particular testing to make sure that your files are up to snuff before you actually assemble them, or is it just obvious from the
just look at it? Yeah, just look at it. See how it's in the building. So like when you'll know if your print is fucked when you're trying to build a gun. Yeah. So when you're trying to build it, you'll know if there's a problem. Like for example, if things just aren't fitting right. Now the pin, I've always had trouble personally. I've always had trouble with the pinholes, always. And I have tried so many different settings and never been able to figure it out. So I've always had to drill out my pinholes. And like more aggressively than you're supposed to have to, but I've always had to. But outside of stuff like that I know is just a settings issue. I know there's nothing wrong with the print. There's just a settings issue that's happening that's causing my pinholes to be small. Because everything else fits. My rails fit great. Locking block fits great. Everything fits great except the pin. So I know there's just something weird happening. Yeah. So, but you'll know if something's fucked when you're trying to build the gun. And it's just not coming together right, or the slide's sitting way too high up on the frame. That means your Z height's too low. Stuff like that. The locking block doesn't click in a satisfying way. That's actually one of the bigger ones. Is like if your locking block and your front rail doesn't, for the Glocks anyway, if that doesn't like click in like a satisfying way where it's like, ooh yeah, that fits perfect. Your print might have a problem. You're going to want to double check some things. Could just be a little bit of a fitment issue. Just file a couple of things. You're good to go. Or it could be that your dimensions are way off. But here's the thing about it too. I've seen guys in this community will force failures. Right. And the thing about it, especially once they moved those rear rails to where they pin down in the grip, instead of up on there was like maybe 3 millimeters of material above where the rails were actually pinned in on the old FMDA Glocks.
Okay.
They moved that pin down into the grip on the version 2. And because that was the most common point of failure back there was on those rear rails, it would just split. Just
kind of blow out.
Yeah. But nobody blew their hands off. Like a catastrophic failure on one of these firearms, is probably not gonna kill you. Like it's probably not even, it might sting a little bit, but I don't think blowing your hands off is any real danger if you put it together in a halfway competent way. Right. Yeah. You'd have to fuck up pretty badly. It's almost like head spacing on an AK. Like if your head spacing's off, it's very dangerous on an AK. Okay. I don't think there's anything in 3D printing that fails as catastrophically as that. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Because when your head spacing's off on an AK, it hucks your bolt at you.
Oh God.
Yeah, because you can't get a good because your lugs won't lock properly. You can't get a good lock on your bolt, so it'll huck your bolt at you. I've seen nothing in the 3D printed space fail like that. You know what I mean? And those are factory guns, and they can just get like that if they're cheap and crappy. But most things people buy are cheap and crappy.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you know where this meme of blowing your hand off came from with 3D printed guns?
It's the FUDs.
Yeah, that's what
it's
I
the FUDs.
Just from unintelligence or ignorance.
Yeah, it's the FUDs because it's the same kind of guys that were like, it's the same kind of guys that back in the 90s and the early 2000s stuff when Glock was starting to take off. That was more in the 90s. But you know how Glock did that, by the way? Like, why Glock became so popular? It was because of the Glock girls at the shows. Like, what they would do is they would have Glock got big in the US because they would go to the trade shows and like SHOT Show and stuff. And when people were going to see if they were going to get contracts from any of these distributors, like if I'm working at maybe, let's say I'm in procurement at the LAPD. Well, I'm going to go to the trade shows for firearms and talk to the people and see if I can get a contract so they can give me the firearms my guys need.
Sure.
Well, Glock had the Glock girls, and they had these parties in the Glock suite that were like they ended up taking off, and because they got all these contracts that were at least that's the apocryphal story. I'm
okay.
Don't quote me on it too much. But, yeah, well, yes, I'm not going to accuse anybody of that, but it would make sense.
Every police chief in the country is all of a sudden a lot happier and shooting less dogs.
Right, exactly. But yeah, that's what made Glock take off. But that's what they do. Like, there's a lot of, but dude, it's getting so much more accessible. Not just 3D printing, but gun ownership. Like, gun ownership is more accessible now than I remember it being, and that's primarily because, and maybe this has to do with me kind of coming into my life at the same time this is happening, or something like that. But I always remember it being prohibitively expensive to try and actually like get into like having a gun, right? Mm-hmm. If you're not going to buy shit, right? If you're going to buy something that's actually going to be reliable, dependable, you used to have to spend way more money than you do now. Like I just went and bought a Canik TP9 SC. This is a Turkish firearm handgun. It's made by Canik, which is supposed to be pronounced Yannick, but nobody pronounces it Yannick. It's people say Canik because it's spelled with a C. But they're Turkish. But they make guns for like Turkish police and military and stuff like that. Like they make stuff for actual duty applications. They make duty guns. And the Canik TP9 SC is a $400 gun. Sticker. You can find it cheaper. And it is such a good handgun, dude. They basically stole the Walther trigger. So the trigger, anyone who fires one of these guns is like, oh, the trigger's incredible. It's one of the best handgun triggers you're gonna get, like out of the box. It comes with a holster that's not very good, but it's serviceable it's serviceable as an over the waistband holster. I've worn it IWB. It's not the most comfortable holster, IWB, but it's a serviceable holster. Comes with an extra mag. It comes with back straps. Like you can change the back strap on the back of the grip. Okay. It comes with an extra foot for one of the mags if you want to do a flush mag, which I don't know why you would on a subcompact because your pinky's hanging off.
I have two fingers hanging off on a sub.
Oh yeah, it's bad. But the 15-round mag in the Canik, dude, the 15-round mag is gripped and textured, and it flows out of the actual grip itself, and it feels like I'm holding a full-size gun with that 15-round mag in it. It's so damn good.
It's the same way with my XDS.
Right, exactly. But it's a $400 gun.
Yeah, that ain't bad.
And it comes sight ready. It's got a shield cut on the top of the slide. Used to be you could not get a gun that was ready for sights, ready for an optic, for less than like $600. And that was going to be like one of the cheaper ones.
Wow.
And now it's like you can just go buy that gun for $400 and it's optic ready. I put a Crimson Trace 1550 on mine. It's a relatively cheap optic, but it fits the price bracket of the gun. It's a $150 optic. But I say that to say you can get nice guns now, like really good feeling guns for $400. Hell yeah. And part of that I think comes down to like people like Palmetto State Armory who want to make good stuff cheap. And just like that, every one of their Gen 1s has problems, I know. They had the firing pin issue on the dagger, I know. But being able to sell those guns at that price, I think, is probably worth having some Gen 1 issues. And it sucks for people who got it. But as I understand it, Palmetto State Armory is great at replacing stuff when it fails.
Okay.
Yeah. They're, as I understand it, there was a firing pin issue on the dagger where the firing pin would shear off and you would lose, or the striker rather. The striker would shear off, and you would basically lose your striker. As I understand it, that's been fixed. I'm not sure. I haven't double checked it recently, but as I understand, that's been fixed, and they were replacing people's strikers, just like, we'll just fix it.
Nice.
Who cares? So but just like that, it's so cheap to get a gun now.
Yeah.
At least compared to how it was when I was younger.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I still remember, or maybe just remember, price points when I was a young lad that didn't have money, so everything seemed really expensive.
Exactly. That's probably a little bit of it for me. Yeah. That's probably a little bit of it for me too. Because there's always been guns you could buy for $400, but I don't think there's ever been a gun that you could buy for $400 that's as nice as some of the compacts and subcompacts that you have now on the market for $400.
Yeah, I imagine not. Clearly, I'm looking at the wrong places when I go to PSA, because I just end up seeing all the fucking Gucci Glocks that are like purple metallic, and it's like $600 for a slide. And I'm like, man, I'm just trying to finish a print here.
Right.
Spend $600 on those slide.
Do you follow Mr. Guns and Gear? On Twitter, he will post when there's a good deal on stuff, and then
sick.
But on Palmetto State Armory on PSA, if you just go to their daily deals, there's always something good that's a relatively good deal.
Okay.
But just like that, their dagger slides and stuff, they put those on sale with relative frequency. So you could finish out a Glock 19 if you have your frame internals, you could finish a Glock 19 on Palmetto State Armory for like $250 on a good sale on a dagger slide.
Oh, okay. That ain't bad at all. I was already following him. I didn't realize that. Go me.
Yeah, he posts because he posted a deal on my exact gun, but with a different finish. It's a beautiful, beautiful finish on Palmetto State Armory. It's gorgeous. He posted a Canik TP9SC with a Damascus finish. It's a black gun with like a blue Damascus pattern on it. It is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And it was right after I got mine, or a few days after I got mine. And I was so upset because I was like, this is $50 cheaper than what I paid for mine. And it is so beautiful.
Speaking of related topic, 6 hours ago, PSA has the complete Dagger G19 compatible slide assembly with Dr. Pattern Optics cut, Cerakote finish, Ameriglow lower, 1/3 co-witness sights, and threaded barrel for $200 currently here.
Yeah. Okay, so you get that. That's $200, right? A couple bucks worth of filament to print out one of the Glock 19 frames. You're gonna spend probably, what does Aves sell rails for that for? $40, something like that. Maybe a little less than that. Actually, I'm not sure. Let's look at Aves rails real quick. And this is if you're printing in PLA, because that's the other thing is that I need to do is I need to start printing in nylon, but it's going to be such a pain in the ass to get prepped for that.
Ooh. Okay, what's the difference there? What's the benefit of going nylon?
Well, I would not. I'll put it this way: people do, and it's fine. So don't take this as judgment. Anybody listening who does this, I would not EDC a PLA Plus gun, and part of the reason for that is because it does not have. So the glass transition point of PLA Plus is lower than I'm really comfortable with if I'm ever in a position where I have to leave my gun in the car.
Okay.
It gets so hot in the car in Texas. You can easily have it 120 degrees in a car. 115 degrees, something like that in the heat of summer. And so it's tough for me. I'm not sure if it's a problem. I get a little paranoid, right? With firearms. So for me, I would not EDC PLA plus.
Okay.
I would EDC nylon, the glass filled nylon, Zytel, stuff like that. I would EDC that. The melting point of that, or the glass transition temperature, that is so high and it is so durable. Honestly, I think it is possible that a nylon printed Glock frame is probably. I'm going to step out on a limb and I'm going to say it's probably as durable, if not more durable, than a poly Glock frame from Glock.
Okay.
Okay. So it's one of those things where it's like I would EDC a gun that's printed in nylon.
Gotcha. Do you know the difference, like price per spool for Zytel over PLA Plus?
Zytel's much more expensive.
I guess the question was how much more.
So what do you pay for a spool PLA Plus nowadays? $20?
$30. Yeah,
$30. Yeah. So it's double the price basically, if not a little more. A little more than that even. I think you could probably spend on a big spool. You could probably spend up to, for glass filled nylon, you could probably spend $80 thereabouts, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower. But just like that, that's I would EDC nylon. I would not EDC PLA plus. I'm not saying anyone else. Everyone, like, make your own decision. Yeah, there's plenty of information out there for people to look at. Sure. And hell, my information might be old. These are things that I read in readmes years and years and years ago. I know some people have been treating their PLA frames with. Some people have been. Shit, I forget what you call it. God damn it. But when you, they've been heating the frames, like you can put it in an oven or in a, like a sous vide kind of setup, sure. And sort of condition it, and it makes it more durable. And it makes it more. And there are guys that will EDC those with no problem.
Okay.
But like what you have to do is you have to pack it with flour salt. Because it will stop it from warping and it will stop the dimensions from changing. Okay. And then you have to bake it at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time. And it, I forget what the term is for doing this to plastic. I apologize, but it makes it more durable. It makes it more heat resistant. Because the layers adhere together better. That's your durability. And then, I'm not sure why it becomes more heat resistant to me. It's the same material. I don't know why it would be, but apparently it is.
Yeah, there must be a chemical change once you have that prolonged heat.
Could be, but that's what people do. And people will EDC those no problem. Just a heat treated PLA frame, PLA plus frame.
Yeah, I was completely unaware of that. That's cool.
Yeah. I've seen guys who EDC that and they've got no issues whatsoever. I'm still a little skittish on it. But
keep it,
who the fuck am I, right? Yeah, right. Right. But I also try to stay out of that kind of situation too, where I'm leaving a gun where it's unattended.
Yeah.
Like outside of my house. Overall. Yeah, I don't like leaving my guns unattended. Especially in my car in Houston, Texas, a car that's already been broken into like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Just the factors for not leaving it just continue to compound as the story goes.
Yeah, it's bad. But okay, so the DD 19.2 rails are $35.50 on Aves rails. So that plus your $200 slide locking block on Aves is also $35. So you're looking at, once you get all your pins, you just buy a Glock pin set on Amazon. Once you get all that together, and your trigger is going to be your next big purchase, so probably $50 on that if you want it to feel any kind of good. 60, maybe even more expensive than that. But yeah, you can build a Glock with that dagger slide for what are we approaching now? $400?
Yeah, that neighborhood.
A Glock 19 that feels better than any Glock 19 Glock makes.
Yep.
Because it's a Chairman 1 frame instead of fucking the bricks that Glock turns out.
Glock, we don't really care what it feels like frame.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
the level of accessibility that 3D printing's done, but also the level of accessibility just like that good guns for cheap has done for 3D for gun ownership is something that I celebrate in a real way, and I'm very very happy about it because I it could be prohibitively expensive and it's not.
It could be, and I think we're probably just going to start to see the impact of 3D printing on that, like some of the aesthetics and also that price point coming down. Now that it continues to proliferate, I think we
Oh
might
yeah,
have to we might see bigger manufacturers finally acknowledge that it exists and get serious about figuring out where they can cut costs and also deliver a better feeling, better looking product.
yeah, yeah. I think Canik is pushing a lot of people in that direction. Canik, I say Canik in particular, not because I'm a Canik fanboy. I'm not. I own one of their firearms. But looking at the stuff that they turn out at the price points that they turn it out, they and also, I mean, look, the MMP 2.0, right? This is that's very similar to it's a subcompact gun, designed to be EDC. I believe it's also optic ready, and I think it's $450 sticker. Like that, the subcompact like everyday carry gun space is getting so full of good shit for cheap that it's like it's kind of ridiculous. I think we live in the best time for if you want to carry, if you actually want to carry a gun, this is the best time that there's ever been to actually carry a gun because they're making subcompacts and micro compacts that are super super affordable.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Definitely
Yeah.
look at your rules there. Oh, I guess I'll go into digression here for a short while. I guess it's been almost 2 months ago, had the displeasure of serving on a grand jury here in South Carolina. And I was
Oh,
surprised to learn that a grand jury is not like a high profile case. A grand jury is who the cops come and present a case to determine whether or not it has merit to even go to court.
yes, generally this occurs in felony cases. But the grand jury is the collection of people who determine whether the prosecutor has enough evidence to move forward. And the rules of evidence at a grand jury make defense attorneys very, very angry because there are none. Things that would not be inadmissible at trial are admissible in a grand jury, and things that defenses and exculpatory evidence that would be admissible at trial and that the prosecution would be, at least in the state of Texas, the prosecution would be compelled to turn over evidence like that because the Michael Morton Act, one of the best laws ever written. As laws go, which is a low bar, but the Michael Morton Act is really good for defendants.
Interesting.
But the grand jury determines they will hand down an indictment or they will no bill the defendant, and that depends on. Now there are some methods by which a defense attorney may be able to turn in what's called what Lady Jane actually calls a grand jury packet. That it's a bunch of information, exculpatory evidence maybe, but other information that you would give that would be presented to the grand jury as well. But you don't always get to do that.
We did not hear any such thing. We only heard from cops presenting their cases from whatever dates.
Yeah, the state the grand jury is there to listen to the state's evidence, not the defense.
Yeah, yeah.
So they determine whether or not you're going to hand down an indictment. Whether they determine whether or not there's going to be an indictment, and then once there's an indictment, then the defendant gets their trial.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pursuit of an indictment by a grand jury is like I said, it's for felonies.
I didn't.
But
They
yeah,
did not make that clear before we went into this.
that
I
it
would have
was.
bitched about a lot more if I'd realized they were all felony cases.
Oh yeah, were they all felony cases?
They didn't make clear what the charge was because like there was one murder and someone had asked like for clarification whether it was first second degree murder, and the guy said it's just murder, we don't determine that part yet.
Okay.
I don't
So so
know what
they'll
the semantics are of any of it, but
yeah. So that could be for a couple of reasons. I'm not sure where you are, but it could be that your jurisdiction um doesn't have degrees of murder if they're running on common law.
they do. They do. It just
Okay.
wasn't determined until
Yeah. So what they were doing was they were just
court.
waiting to see if the grand jury said, yeah, move forward with this, and then they would pick a level that they thought they could prove.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or they would overcharge like assholes and try to force a plea, which is
That
common.
felt typical. Yeah.
Yeah.
There. So the reason I bring up this digression at all is like 2/3 or more of the cases that were brought to us the one day. Luckily, I was only there for one day in my 6-month service. Vast majority of cases were either possession of small amounts of drugs or the expectation that there were drugs in the vehicle, leading to the cops finding a gun stored not in the 2 government approved locations in a vehicle. And so the charge was something related to improper,
yeah. Mishandle.
Yeah.
Improper transport, mishandling, whatever they call it in your jurisdiction.
Like
yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
weapons
very, very
possession
common.
charges.
Yeah, very common. There's a similar problem that you run into with felons. This is a this is a bit of a bugaboo for me and also for Lady Jane. But felons should be allowed to own guns. I don't care what anyone says to the contrary. There is no reason that a person who has supposedly paid their debt to society should not be allowed to own a firearm. And the reason I say this is not necessarily because I think it's right or just. I believe that both of those things are true, but it's not really the core of it. The core of it is that the thing that people get in trouble for all the goddamn time, felons who are out, even if they've fixed their lives up, it's been 10 years, right? And their lives are together, they got their shit together, they got a family, whatever. Felon in possession of a firearm.
Yeah.
Felon in possession of a firearm is a charge that ruins people's lives, good people's lives, people who have put their lives back together after a felony conviction get their lives torn apart by felon in possession of a firearm, and it doesn't even have to be their gun. If a gun is near a felon, they're going to catch that charge. Like if you're like, let's say for example, you're a guy who now you're driving your dad's truck, right? And your dad's in the passenger seat and he keeps a gun in the glove box. Well, you're FIP.
Yeah.
You're a felon in possession. So you get pulled over. If that gets found, you're fucked. You're fucked.
Yep.
The felon in possession is the thing that ruins lives. In fact, Andrew Coffey IV justified self-defense shooting at those cops. Guess why he went to prison after that event? Felon in possession. He obviously was in possession of the gun. He used it to shoot at the cops. They didn't convict him for that part.
Yeah.
But of course, they got the conviction for felon in possession. Felon in possession of a firearm is one of the most unjust things that people fall prey to as it stands now, like where the law's concerned. It's really bad. And I can see no logic for it. And in fact, Amy Coney Barrett, when she was on the circuit court, she wrote a dissent, I think, in a case where she argued that needs to be overturned for nonviolent felonies, that nonviolent felons need to have their gun rights restored. It's actually a really good little piece of writing that she did, but that was a case where the guy had been convicted of something like mail fraud. And and his gun rights had been stripped. And so she was arguing that, Amy Coney Barrett was arguing that he should have his gun rights back anyway. This is stupid. He's not a violent felon. He wasn't convicted of a violent felony. This is a blue collar crime, or a white collar crime rather.
Right.
Why is this even the law? So yeah, that is something that's, like I said, that's a bit of a bugaboo for me. Sorry, I went off on a tangent about it, but yeah.
No worries. Yeah. I mean, the point of bringing it up was just to see how petty so many of these officers were. Like there was one story in particular I remember, and I don't know, I'm not going to have specifics and I don't remember names anyway, but the cop went to pull somebody over for failing to fucking turn on their turn signal or some bullshit and chased him at 80 miles an hour through town like running red lights and all this shit, and finally pulls him over, searches the vehicle, finds a gun in the duffel bag in the back, and they don't charge him with anything but the weapons charge just to have that enhancement. And I was the only person of the 15 of us that had any complaints with the simple like gun possession charge, and there was not a person who gave a shit about my protest.
Man, no, of course not, because you broke the law, man.
Yeah,
you got to respect the law.
It was a real eye opener for me. It was like,
oh yeah,
it was like I told my wife whenever I got home, it's like you hear these stories one after another. It's like I get cut off in traffic. That's called Tuesday. But you cut off a cop in traffic, he's gonna find some way to ruin your fucking life.
Oh yeah,
it's like
yeah.
the I'm 27 years old, and there are people 2 and 3 times my age that just accept this as everyday reality, and I don't understand how you
don't even think about
life and don't think about it.
Yeah. Don't even think about it. Well, here's the problem, and I talked a little bit about this on the End Times Continue, but I'll make the point again. They don't think about it because it will never ever affect them. They see themselves, right, as people who will never land in the system.
Yeah.
They see themselves as people who are never going to see the inside of a courtroom. So they don't even think about the effect that these things have on other people.
Right.
And anytime you pull a law out of the context of its breaking, right, the law seems incredibly simple. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is improperly transporting a firearm or improper handling of a trial, whatever they call it. Yeah, and isn't it so simple? You put it in a holster and you put it in one of these approved places. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to follow this law. But the thing is, it's like, well, what if it is though? Or what if I don't want to? Or what if it's dumb?
Yeah. Or what if it's in my range bag in the back seat,
exactly,
not back in my fucking center console? It's further from my reach now, and I caught a weapons charge for that.
Exactly. Or you put it in a range, or in some states it has to be a trigger lock on it to transport, and it's like, but it's in a bag in my back seat. I obviously can't reach it. Nobody can reach it. Why does he need a trigger lock on it? I'm going straight home.
Trigger lock, is that better?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those kinds of things, they all sound very simple, but then you're going to ruin someone's life over it, and they don't seem so important. Yeah. That's the thing that people don't really think about, is especially these kind of, we complained about them, but guys like, Matt Walsh or Jack Posobiec who never see themselves as landing inside a courtroom, and so they don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
that how the system works
for me when you made that connection, because I haven't thought about what other people think about such things, but just in the last few months, it's kind of just been puzzling to me how people don't have the they live glasses on, basically. But that really connected the dots for me, because I saw myself in every one of those people, because sometime far enough back that the statute of limitations has expired, have traveled with small amounts of drugs and weapons improperly placed in my vehicle.
Yeah.
And could have just any day that a cop was pissed off had caught a felony or two.
Look, I've been arrested. I've been in handcuffs. I've been taken to jail. I know how easy it is to fall into that situation. It's incredibly easy. My case was a nothing. It was a dud. There was nothing at all. And I was still charged. I was still thrown in a cage. I still had to spend hours there. I was still, having to, it's like I said on the show the other day, I was still dealing with that arrest just a few weeks ago, about a month and a half ago now. I was still dealing with that arrest. And it was almost a decade ago now. So it's one of those things where the case was dismissed in the interest of justice. There was no evidence. There was nothing going on. There was no reason for me to be in a cage, but they put me there anyway. I know how easy it is to fall into it. But the problem is that, and I won't say it's a problem, it's actually fortunate for them. But the issue becomes that so few people have that experience that they have no frame of reference for it. They don't know how easy it is,
right,
to land in a cage. They don't. because they never have. They never experienced it. They never experienced basically a contempt of cop charge. And so that they think it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or they think it won't happen to them, and they'll just get their day in court.
Yeah. They've just seen these high profile cases where the prosecution is like bringing up all the past charges of the guy that's now on trial. And you're like, that's probably everybody. They've done like 7 or 8 horrible things that we know of, and they finally got caught for one. So they deserve it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way people think about it.
Yeah.
The only conviction I've got on my record is for is a moving violation. When I was in high school, I don't even think I've gotten a ticket since I was in high school. But those are the only convictions I've got on my record. But if I'd landed in front of a jury, the assumption would have been that I'm some kind of criminal. And that's what's disturbing about it. And people have these assumptions about, well, you wouldn't end up in this situation if you weren't doing something wrong. And it's like, that's just not the case. It's just not the case.
Yeah. That shit's a psyop.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And it's something that a lot of people believe. In fact, I was kind of fascinated. I was watching a poll that Ella was running a poll. People make fun of Ella, whatever, but her polls are fascinating. She had asked a question on there about, had you ever been arrested? And something like 97% of the people responded with no. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, people who follow Ella are degenerates. Like there's, I know because I'm one. There's no way that more of these people haven't been arrested. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, most people don't get arrested. Most people break the law all the time and nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
So I guess it was surprising the way that it sort of put that in such stark contrast for me, that it's like, man, nobody has experience with the system. Nobody does. Yeah. And yet everyone's got opinions on it.
Yeah, that's the negative part. Fuck. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just kind of baffling to me. It really is. Because, like, I mean, I've walked into Walmart with a gun on my hip that's not like, I don't have the government okay to carry it, and I don't think you're supposed to carry it in Walmart anyway, but I just forgot to take it out of my waistband. And like, I run across a cop with a bad day that notices my tight pants have a bulge in them that's off to the side of my cock.
You're printing a little bit, or then
that's a bad day. That's a bad fucking day. And that I would have been just another one of these fucking names that was read off this day in the grand jury that nobody gave a fuck about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so easy to, and just like that, you're doing nothing wrong.
100%.
Nothing wrong at all. There's nothing. I mean, look, it's not like Walmart has a problem with you carrying. You can carry in Walmart in Texas.
Right.
So it's not like the corporation that is Walmart has a problem with you carrying. So the idea that you were doing anything wrong in that moment is insane. And yet you could have, it very, very easily could have gone tits up.
Yeah.
It happens so fast. It happens so fast to people.
Gross.
It sucks. It fucking sucks, man.
I guess kind of adjacent topic here. Something that I had in the notes. If you're making a pitch to some 2A thumping conservative FUD, law-abiding gun owner, in quotes, why are these generally anonymous developers of parts files more important for the proliferation of the right to keep and bear arms than the NRA?
Oh, because the NRA does not give a single shit about the right to keep and bear arms. The NRA, this is the thing with the NRA, man. And a lot of people kind of in the space that we run in understand this, but many people outside of it don't. The NRA represents gun manufacturers, the gun companies. The NRA does not represent the gun owner.
Yeah, the first time I heard that, I couldn't believe it because my dad had been a lifetime member of the NRA for as long as I can remember. Because
many people
are standing up for him.
Look, I've had family who are lifetime members of the NRA because they believe the grift. But it is a grift. The NRA does not give a shit about your right to bear arms. The NRA will side with the government whenever it is most convenient for the gun manufacturers for that to be the case. Oh, kitty. The great example is the bump stock ban.
Yeah.
When the bump stock ban was coming down, the NRA was all for it. They loved it. The NRA loved the bump stock ban. And as soon as the Fifth Circuit, as some very courageous judges in the Fifth Circuit, decided that they were going to decide that this was in fact unconstitutional. Now there's a circuit split, by the way. The bump stock ban has not been overturned. There's a circuit split.
So all you that found your bump stocks that didn't exist for the last couple of years, hide them again.
Put them back. Put them back. Have another boating accident. It's not overturned. The Supreme Court's going to have to take it up. There's a circuit split on it, I believe. Don't quote me on anything I say ever. But but just like that. The NRA was all for it. And then once the Fifth Circuit was like, no, this is wrong, the NRA was like, haha, look at us. We won at the Fifth Circuit. It's like, you weren't involved. You weren't involved, assholes.
Fuckers.
So the NRA doesn't care about the right to bear arms. And more importantly, I think, the NRA, especially, I believe, personally, if you were to speak to somebody at the NRA who actually believes in the NRA's interests, I'm talking about, suit and tie wearing motherfuckers at the NRA with something to say about it. If you were to listen to what they have to say about the 3D printed firearm community, I bet they hate it.
Yeah.
I bet they hate it. There's nothing worse for the image of firearms politically than the reality that it's impossible to stop them.
Yeah. And a bunch of Weibo PFPs are making cute ones.
Exactly. The NRA, I'm sure, hates the 3D printed gun community, but what I would tell that FUD is, look, I love the fact that his wife has a holster purse from the NRA. And I love the fact that he got a nice leather inside the waistband holster for his 1911. I'm so happy for him. The NRA does not care about any of that. The 3D printed gun guys do. And more importantly, the 3D printed gun guys care about that for everyone.
Yep.
The NRA does not at all.
The 3D printed gun guys would tell you not to have a leather holster.
They would tell you not to have a leather holster, and they would probably tell you not to have a holster in your purse either. Because if someone takes your purse, now they've got your gun. Yes. And a purse is a thing people love stealing. So why would you put your gun in a thing that's a target for theft? Anyway. So they also do more to proliferate gun ownership than the NRA. Because it's so much easier to own a gun when you can just make it.
That's true.
And one of the things these FUDs love doing is like, well, anybody can make one. You just need $10,000 worth of metalworking tools. Okay, well, how about a $200 printer and we call it even? Yeah. Fucking idiots. these guys, they want you to buy a fucking. They want to act like it's a dunk that. Well, anyone's always been able to make these things. You just need a minimum, I think, $7,000 now. Giant CNC router, and anyone can do it. Well, yeah, okay. I mean, anyone can do this. So. There are more firearms in the world in more people's hands as a result of the 3D printing gun community than as a result of the NRA. And absolutely. That's why. Because they actually have done the work. And there's more people. There are more people with the ability because it's so dead simple. And there are more people with the means because it's so cheap to own a firearm now because of what the 3D printing gun community's done than anything the NRA has ever done.
Fuck yeah.
They've never, ever worked as hard as the 3D printing gun community to make guns accessible and cheap and ownable. Actually ownable. NRA loves licensure. Like, they love all of that shit. They love regulation. Yeah, they love it.
All corporate lobbies do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. My dad was surprisingly he's the old boomercon that I'm talking about here.
Oh yeah.
Was surprisingly interested in oh shit. I think we're still here. Surprisingly interested in the stuff that I had printed.
Oh yeah.
Came to visit. Uh, and he is the big Trump NRA guy.
Oh yeah. Kind of a FUD thing.
Yeah. He was all about his guns and also right behind Trump on the bump stock ban.
Jesus.
And wanted to hear no part of Trump outlawing more guns than Barack Obama.
Yeah. Oh yeah. More regulations in the Trump era than in the Obama era. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's one of those things that just like that. And some of those regulations, I don't know what's going to happen. For example, I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of guys who are, I'm going to come off like an asshole, but and I don't mean to be. But I think there's a lot of people who are a little too excited for what could happen as a result of EPA v. West Virginia. And are you hearing that notification, by the way, when it comes in?
I heard like a lip smacky sound, I feel like.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was my phone. My bad.
It's okay.
So the they're a little too excited about like the results of EPA v. West Virginia. I think it's West Virginia. And Bruen and what that could mean for the ATF. There are people who are way too excited about what Bruen could mean for the NFA. There are people who think that Bruen means the NFA is going to get overturned. I don't think the Supreme Court's going to overturn the NFA. And I don't think that the Supreme Court's going to take away the ATF's rulemaking power. I just don't think it's going to happen. It would be so controversial and it would be politically so divisive that I think it would basically be daring the next Democratic majority legislature to pack the court.
Okay.
If they were to overturn the NFA and if they were to take away the ATF's rulemaking power, either one of those, I think, would be so politically damaging to the left that they would basically say, okay, never mind, we're taking over the Supreme Court now.
Interesting.
And just do it. So it's one of those things that I think people are a little too excited about Bruen, frankly. Because Bruen's also, look, I mean, let's be real. If I'm a lawyer and I'm working on a Bruen case, that's an unworkable test.
Yeah.
The Bruen standard, the idea of the history and tradition standard, while I think ideally like it should be totally workable, it's one of those things that there are so many laws at so many times in so many places.
Yeah.
It turns almost into
subjective.
Yeah. It's kind of an unworkable test. The easier test would be, is this a regulation on guns? Okay, then it doesn't get to happen. Like that would be an easier test, but they're not going to do that.
Is it infringing?
So
yes. Okay. No.
Yeah. Exactly. But I don't know. I think a lot of it too, though, goes back to Heller. I think a lot of it goes back to Scalia. I don't like Heller as a decision. Heller, if you read Heller, like gun guys like Heller, but Heller's so wishy-washy. This is what ended up happening after Heller. So Kennedy, I believe it was Kennedy. I could be wrong. In a Heller dissent, if I'm not mistaken, it was somebody in a Heller dissent. It might have been might have been Breyer. But in any case, there was a Heller dissent that basically posited that we should have a balancing test about, how much is the right affected versus how, what's the interest of the state in making sure that this gun either isn't in this place or isn't with this person or not this type of gun, whatever it is, that we should have a balancing test. And the Heller opinion basically said, no, we're not doing any balancing tests. Well, because Heller was so poorly written, the circuits ended up inventing a balancing test. And you had a balancing test at the circuits until Bruin, basically.
Okay.
And it was a shitty balancing test, really hard to figure out. It was slightly different in each circuit, only slightly, but still. And that's because Heller's not good. I know people love Heller, and to say that Heller is a bad opinion, because Heller establishes the individual right to bear arms, sure, fine, but they could have just written that. Scalia could have just sat down and said, no, there's an individual right to bear arms, you don't get to regulate anything that can be called arms, opinion over.
Yeah, he was too.
He could have done that. Right. He could have done that, but instead he decided to set all these standards and about, unusually dangerous and all this other shit. Weapons in common use. Lawyers love making up new legalese, but the problem is it confuses the issue.
For sure.
So I don't like Heller. As much as people love Heller, I don't like Heller. I think Heller didn't go far enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it forced the circuits to make up a test. That's one of the reasons they had to take Bruin. Yeah, that's one of the reasons they had to take Bruin is because the circuits were basically running on an ad hoc Second Amendment analysis that didn't come from SCOTUS case law.
Right, which would be a lot more beneficial to the gun owner than whatever circuit your case ends up in. Yeah,
exactly. So they went ahead and took Bruin and they decided to make it history and tradition. But the problem with that is that turns into a game of he said, she said. Because just like that, you can point to some law from 1860 about, we were disarming people in 1860 when the 14th Amendment was passed. Well, who were you disarming? Freedmen. But that doesn't matter because we were doing it and it's in the history. So there.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not a good standard. I don't like it.
Yeah. Gross.
But just like that, I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent. But
okay, I enjoy it.
It just bugs me. It just bugs me.
I guess to kind of finish up here, has there been anything off the wall, anything particularly cool or interesting that you've printed or even I guess especially printed and put to use?
Gun related?
I guess not necessarily, but I'd be interested in any funky stuff in that regard as well.
Look, gun related stuff. I've mostly just printed frames, right, and lowers. Yeah. So I haven't really done anything. I'm not printing dollhouse chairs.
I've printed a lot of board game shit because many board games have just dog shit storage, and nerds make great storage for these board games that fit.
They really
boxes.
They really do. But I've printed. I've actually some of the stuff that I've printed that I'm most sort of, to me, the gun printing thing is so normal that when I print something that like 3D printing is kind of supposed to be good for, as far as like home 3D printing goes, like I printed the key ring holder that hangs in the house. I printed a paper towel holder for the kitchen because the apartment didn't come with one. I've printed stuff like for around the house. That's the stuff I end up being more impressed with, because to me the gun thing, well the gun thing is so normal to me. Like to me, I'm backward of, and I think a lot of us in this sort of community are. I'm backward of where a lot of the people who 3D print things are on what 3D printing is. Because to me, 3D printing is a method by which one makes guns. And then I can also accidentally use it to print useful things around the house. I think for most people, it's the reverse.
Yeah, for sure.
I think for most people in the 3D printing community, it's like, no. 3D printing is how I print knickknacks and stuff for around the house. And then, oh my God, it can also print guns? For me, total opposite. Yeah, exactly. For me, it's the total opposite. It's for printing guns, and then it can also do other stuff. So I end up being most impressed by or proud of. Like I designed and printed a box for my network attached storage system, because what I use for network attached storage is a Raspberry Pi and 2 4 terabyte USB hard drive disks. And that's my network attached storage. The disks are in RAID 0. and I've got I've got fully redundant storage between two 4 terabyte disks on a Raspberry Pi that's just plugged into my router, and it's on the network, and you can access from any computer on the network. So I designed a box to hold all the components and stuff, and I printed that out, and it turns out I didn't leave enough room. I underestimated how precise printing is. And so all of the components, like all the holes for the components and stuff, are too tight because they printed perfect.
You're not cutting it with a saw.
Right. Well, I expected some shrinkage for the dimensions, because so I just put in the exact dimensions, and I was like, and then it'll shrink up a little bit, and it'll be just a little bit loose. It'll be just right, basically. No, it turns out printing perfect is a thing that 3D printing can do on a $200 printer with relatively cheap filament. You can print perfect dimensions. So I need to redesign the thing. But it's stuff like that I find most impressive with the 3D printing.
Yeah.
The guns are just kind of a matter of course, really. Like, that's awesome. It's sort of the reverse, I think, of what most people would see. I think most people would be like, yeah, you printed a NAS box, but you can print guns with it? I'm just like, oh, no, printing guns is like totally normal. I'm shocked I got the NAS box. Yeah, exactly. I'm shocked I got the NAS box out of it, though. It's awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm trying to think of some weird ones that we did. We got little dispensers for AA and AAA batteries.
Oh yeah,
nifty, just so they're all in one place rather than like 10 in this package and 20 in that package or whatever the fuck.
Oh yeah, man. And then what ends up happening, the reason that was one of the first things I think that I saw when I first got a printer and went to Thingiverse. It's like a million different versions of battery dispensers, and it's because everybody everybody has the same goddamn problem with batteries, which is they clutter up your junk drawer or they clutter up your counters, and it's impossible to find one when you need one. So everybody had the same idea. Right, exactly. So everybody had the same idea, and it's like battery dispensers. That's one of the first things that people need to be printing.
Yep. It's so handy.
It really is.
That and I mean, it's basically solving a very similar problem. It's just it's like a little desktop thing that you can put all your thumb drives and micro SD and regular SD cards in as well.
Yep.
Because I always have them everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I printed one of those SD card holders that has slots for the micros and for the full size, and then there's like a lid that screws on it. It's really cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that stuff is incredibly. It's weird how useful shit is. I printed before I bought one, and I bought one because I got another set of headphones and needed 2 headphone hangers instead of one. I had printed an underdesk. Yeah, exactly. I'd printed an underdesk headphone hanger with like a screw. You actually it's like a C-clamp.
Okay.
I printed out of ABS, and it worked perfectly.
Nice. I haven't fucked with ABS at all. Well, I did one time, and it adhered to my the flexi bed, like the magnetic bed cover, stuck to it so bad that I had to throw that one away.
Oh, really?
It was horrible.
With ABS, I print on glass, so okay. I've never had a print stick that badly. And it's also one of those things. Actually, my issues are on the other side. I have problems with adhesion. I need to do more to make things adhere more. And that's actually one of the reasons I got. One of the things you could do if you have a problem with ABS adhering too much to that magnetic bed. If you get a glass bed and put some tape on it, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a specific kind of tape. It's high temperature tape. It's designed for print adhesion.
Okay.
I got mine at Micro Center, but if you put it on the glass bed, you could, if you have adhesion that's real bad and you just can't get the part off, you could just peel up the tape.
Gotcha. Okay.
Off the bed.
Yeah, I need a glass bed too. I ended up with I think some of it's the wrong diameter as well. But for just like 3 or 4 weeks straight a couple years ago, for some reason the Amazon return store near us, like one of those bin stores that popped up everywhere, had I'm trying to remember. I think it was Polymaker. PLA and ABS, just $5 a spool
Oh, nice.
for a few weeks straight. So we bought everything we could get our hands on. So I've got like a dozen spools of ABS that I don't know what the fuck to do with, because the one time I tried it, it ended up costing me money. So I
Yeah.
haven't got back to
I would go to a glass bed and get some of that. I forget what they call that tape, but it's like a square patch of tape, and it's designed specifically for print beds.
Nice.
But it's great shit, man. It's really good stuff. It solved a lot of my adhesion problems. So that stuff's really good. Another thing, do you print on an Ender 3?
Yeah, I got the Pro.
This is the thing about the Ender 3, dude. The Ender 3 can kind of become a money pit, because the upgrade path on the Ender 3 is so cool that you can end up spending a lot of money upgrading Ender 3.
I was hoping you weren't going somewhere negative with that. I've already upgraded the board and the to the screen to a touch screen.
Yeah. One of the things that I did, I went direct drive extrusion on mine.
Okay.
And so to support the direct drive system, I also got a dual Z kit. So I've got dual Z axis screws and direct drive extruder and an all metal hot end. I was prepping actually to print TPU.
Oh, yeah, I got the all metal hot end as well.
Yeah, I was prepping to print TPU when I went direct drive and stuff like that. And all I need to do now is flash the board, and I'll be able to print like TPU and nylon. But that was but that's like I like it can really. The Ender 3 is sort of, look. I have a hard time telling tinkerers to buy the Ender 3 if I know they're going to spend too much money on it.
You got to limit the upgrade options.
Exactly. Like, you might as well just buy something that already comes with the dual Z and already comes with all the stuff that you're going to want to do to the Ender 3, because it's too much fun to do it to the Ender 3. It's too much fun to get all these upgrade kits for the Ender 3. I've had a blast upgrading the shit out of my Ender 3. It is so much fun.
Yeah. You can buy an AK so you don't spend $4,000 customizing your AR, please.
Yes. Yeah. It kind of. Yeah. It's very much like that. It's
That's awesome.
But the Ender 3, I love the Ender 3. The upgrade path on it's great. It can print anything if you upgrade it right. It's really, really, really good. People just like that. People print nylon frames on the Ender 3, and it's like it's like, wow. Well, it's not designed for that at all. You have to flash the board. You have to go direct drive. If you're going direct drive, you probably should go dual Z.
What's the distinction with direct drive and dual Z?
Okay, so the direct drive extrusion gets rid of the Bowden tube, and it moves the extruder right above the hot end. So it's pushing filament from the extruder directly into the heat sink on the hot end and directly out the other end.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets rid of the Bowden tube. And the reason that you have to do that is because at certain temperatures, the Bowden tube will melt.
Yeah.
And it becomes a problem. and for printing TPU, TPU is very grabby, and trying to print TPU through a Bowden tube will cause malfunctions. So you have to go direct drive for that. Gotcha. And so I knew I was going to need it, and so I just did it. But what it comes with, basically, you're replacing the back plate that the hot end sits on.
Yeah. With
a very tall back plate that you then mount the extruder to, and you run your filament directly to that. So it runs in a straight line right out of the extruder into the hot end. And then the other thing too, the reason that I went dual Z when I did that is because I had read several people who had gone direct drive on the Ender 3 had layer problems because it messed with their Z axis because it's so much more weight.
Heavy. Yeah. So you need the second screw for the.
So you need the second screw to keep that Z gantry that goes across there that's totally unpowered on one side. Yep. You need a second screw going through the back side of that, which means you also have to remove your power supply and put it down like next to the printer.
Man. Okay.
because the screw goes right there where the power supply mounts on the Ender 3. If you remember where the power supply mounts, right behind the frame. Yeah. That's where that screw is going to go. So you have to move the power supply. So there are people who will print out like a power supply holder that goes to the side of it that you put the power supply in.
Yeah,
I printed out.
You can put their screen on that as well.
Yep,
and just have
exactly.
both pieces separated so you can have your
enclosure and you can operate it. Yep,
still operate it from outside. Exactly.
Yep, I moved my power supply outside of my enclosure because it made me nervous having it in my enclosure. So yeah, it just sits right outside my enclosure.
I've had my enclosure printed and assembled, but have not yet gotten the plexiglass for it, and that's been the state that it's sat in for almost 2 years now.
Yeah,
I just haven't ordered the fucking plexiglass.
And then I also one of the things I did too is I was having curling problems when I would print ABS, because you print ABS so hot.
Yeah, it's like scary hot.
And I would if I had a narrow chunk of a print that was also an overhang, it would curl up and ruin the whole print.
Okay, yeah.
As it cooled. And so I was having cooling issues.
Yeah.
Because what should happen is you should cool the walls fast enough that they don't curl up, and then it won't curl up. That's
right.
So ultimately that's a cooling problem. And I had adjusted cooling stuff and also done several test prints. What I ended up doing was I ended up printing out a Pet's Fang. And just I ended up going into, okay, so there was a Pet's Fang that I had pulled down that was going to fit, and I knew it was going to fit, but I had to redo the mount because of the direct drive kit that I had used. It wasn't compatible. So I had to basically build a mount in, I think I used 3D Builder for it, Microsoft 3D Builder. By the way, if you want to put together something, it's not as in-depth as CAD, but Microsoft 3D Builder is really good to get started on making your own shit.
Okay.
It's a free program. And it is if you need to make boxes or flat things, it's great.
Nice.
It is great. I recommend that if you're interested in getting into printing your own shit, 3D Builder is excellent for that. It's not, like I said, it's not as, it's not, what do people use now?
Just FreeCAD?
Yeah, FreeCAD or any of the other CAD stuff. It's not as good as any of that. Okay. And you can't use it the same way. But I've used like 3D modeling software and stuff before, and 3D Builder was very familiar to me because I've done that. Like I've used 3ds Maya, I've used like those kinds of things. And so 3D Builder was really, really easy for me to sort of get a hold of. That's what I printed the NAS box with. I made it in 3D Builder and then I saved it, sent it to Cura, sliced it, printed it. It's perfect. Yeah, it's great. So if you're interested in getting into that, Microsoft 3D Builders, start there if you're interested in like doing that, and then if you like that, move on to CAD software and actually learn how to do it properly. Because 3D Builder is anything but proper as far as all that stuff goes. It's very dumbed down. Yeah. But anyway, so I pretty much designed a mount for it that I knew was going to fit the back plate that my hot end was on, because all that had been changed. So I just built a mount in 3D Builder and then printed out the Pet's Fang, mounted it up, and it works perfectly. And I have really, really good. That's one of the great things about. Look, if with a more expensive printer, you probably wouldn't need to do that. But with the Ender 3, everything's just so dead fucking simple that it's like, if you need to print a part for it, you can just print a part for it.
Yeah.
Or if you need to print a new cooling duct solution, which is what the Pet's Fang is, yeah, there you go. Nice. You can just do it.
Yep. You want dust covers for your fans? Done. Front drawers? Done. Back cover for your LCD screen so you don't get all dusty up in your wires? Done.
And it's such a known quantity. The Ender 3 is such a known quantity that there's so much shit for it. Much of which is totally unnecessary. It's true.
Absolutely.
But
do you want a little Yoda to sit on your extruder?
Exactly.
Here and spin around. I've seen it on the front page of Thingiverse.
So I stole one of those, and I stole one of those just for the base, because what I took was, I believe it was on I can't remember where I went for it, but I pulled down a naked chick sitting. And I put it on I took the Yoda and just chopped the top off of it.
Yeah.
And I put her on the base, and I had one of those for a while, spinning on my extruder. And then I went direct drive, and I couldn't do that anymore. Oh. But I had one of those for a while.
Amazing. Oh man, I think that's probably as good a place to leave it as any.
We're going for like 2 hours.
Oh yeah. Before we wrap up, I wanted to let everybody know who will be listening to this podcast feed when it drops on Friday. This Sunday, we're going to do another WTF forum. It's something that Mike from Easy Peasy has started. Just a time to get together a bunch of us and discuss shit that makes us go, what the fuck? So if you're interested in joining that, it'll be on the same stream here, and his Twitch channel should be his YouTube as well. Dean, you're welcome to join us if you are available Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern. No pressure at all. It's just a time for anybody that wants to come by and discuss some shit that makes their blood boil.
That's exactly when we record TETCs on Sunday evenings.
Perfect timing. No worries. No worries. Tell the people where they can find you and your nondescript user friend.
Yeah. I can be found at Pacing Jouska on Twitter, Jouska. And that's pretty much it. The show that I do with Ace, our show is The End Times Continue. You can find that at tetc.show, or wherever podcasts are distributed.
Hell yeah. I've wondered since the first time I heard the name of your Twitter account, and now I have you here so I can ask you, what the fuck does it mean?
Okay, Pacing Jouska? Yeah. Okay, so there's a book, and I actually have a couple of I may or may not have a couple of Twitter accounts with words based on this book, but there's a book, I believe it's called, I want to be right here because it's a very cool book, The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And what it is it's a book of just like strange words for things that people do or feel. Like for example, there's a word in there that's Wytai, Wytai, and it means the feeling of the absurdity of the world.
Okay.
Like when you
all these things that we don't need one word for.
Exactly. And Jouska is one of the words that's in the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, and it means a hypothetical conversation that you compulsively play out in your head. And so, and so I have a tendency. It's literally just, my name is literally just a verb for something I do. I tend to pace around my house and have hypothetical conversations about topics. Yep. Like if I'm having a hypothetical argument, or maybe there's a legal thing that I'm trying to think through or whatever, I will do it in the form of a hypothetical argument with myself and just pace around my house doing that, thinking through things in that way. And I find it's how I think about stuff. You know what I mean? Is just by having an argument with myself about it and trying to beat it and you know, whatever. So yeah, that's what Pacing Jouska means. It means I pace around my house and Jouska and do Jouska.
That's cool. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, it's very few people. Like, the website for the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows looks like it came out of, like, maybe 2005.
Okay.
Maybe, like, it's got a leather background. That's all. It's terribly. The background image on this website, dude. It's dictionaryofobscuresorrows.com. The background image on this website is so pixelated. It is like the lowest quality JPEG I've ever seen used as the background for a website. It is awful. And the website itself doesn't load right. It's just strange. But it has all these little words in there that are sort of obscure and neat.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's what Joska means. Pacing Joska means walking around the house. I'm walking around the house and I'm having a conversation with myself.
That's awesome. I didn't realize I needed a word for it. I'm glad that it exists.
There's all kinds of stuff like that in that book.
That's cool.
It's really interesting. But just like Wai Tai is another one of my favorites. It sticks with me. It's the feeling that you have that the world is absurd, like of the absurdity of the world.
That's awesome. I remember someone in college who was learning Japanese mentioning like some Japanese word and it means like this paragraph. And it's like, we don't have any words in English that do that. And it's like, well, apparently we do, motherfucker. It's just that we talk to retards all day that don't know them.
This takes a very long time. Yeah, well, it's kind of like there's the reason that people talk about Germany, like German has all these words for things that nobody talks about, stuff like that. Or all these words for things that nobody else. That's because in German you can just smash words together and it becomes its own word.
Yes, it does.
Germans don't necessarily have a word for every little thing. They can just take the different words that even we would say to describe that thing and smash it together into one word and it becomes a word.
Yes. Even if it won't fit on a billboard anymore, it's still one word.
Exactly. But yeah, that's where Joska comes from.
Man, I'm glad that I asked. I really am. This has been a lot of fun, Dean, and I appreciate you stopping by to enliven me.
Absolutely, man. It's been so much fun.
Awesome. I will drop it there for now and slap intros and outros on it another time. And I will send you a link on Twitter once it is posted.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thank you. And good luck on the bar.
Thank you so much, man.
Fuck yeah. All right.
Thank you very much.
Peace.
Have a great night, man.
You